basically we've been lied to. We've been lied to for centuries about our own heritage, about this place, about who we are as people.
Look at the way we portray Africa and Africans. In the book, I call it the 4 Horsemen of Africa's Apocalypse. The focus is on war, disease, corruption, and poverty. And yet, there are many places around the world where that combination of things also exist. And we also know that portraying a continent of 1 billion people in that manner is not helping our young people to have confidence in themselves to become partners on the global stage with the rest of their peers. Nor is that type of a portrayal a good thing to attract investment, which we so desperately need across the continent. Nobody wants to invest in a place which is viewed as disease-ridden, full of poverty and corruption. And yet that is how Africa is portrayed. You only have to watch your television set, and I'm always amazed when I come to the United States, especially coming into the Christmas period, and just how many charities and organizations are using young African children as a way of raising money for their charities. You rarely see Indian children, you rarely see Chinese children. We don't feel sorry for China, we don't feel sorry for India, but somehow, for the past 40 years, there's been a very successful campaign to view Africans as poor, as desperate, and as unable to help themselves.
In the diaspora, and I don't know how much you've heard of it, but how we speak about Africa and the diaspora is very negative. We've been lied to for centuries about our own heritage, about this place, about who we are as people. And when you come here, you realize that everything is false. Everything's been, made up about who we are as people and what this place is about. I mean, so the images that we see in the diaspora are of starving people, the kids, disasters of some kind, it's never a positive image.
This world is all about branding and marketing. The #1 branders in the universe is the United States. They made United States seem like it's the best place in the world to be. It's the land of the free, home of the brave. Alone, there's more people dying in Chicago than there was in the war in Iraq. But you would never see that. There's a lot of things that's happening in the U.S. that you would never see because they choose to show you what they want.
It is called soft power. You cannot measure it, you cannot put a finger on it, but you can exert it. It's a term coined by American scientist Joseph Nye and a concept mastered by the Americans. Soft power, you could say, is the ability to get what you want through attraction rather than coercion. So what does America want? To project itself as the world's most desirable country.
It's about country integrity. You have a certain reputation you have to keep. No one puts their family business out into the street. One of the problems we have in Africa is that when something happens, the press is quick to put out negative energy and quick to put out a negative story. And then that story goes on to internet, and other broadcasting systems take it and they post it. So when you look at places like Kenya, for instance, that I know of, maybe 2 terrorist attacks, but it was everywhere. So now people was afraid to go to Kenya because somebody shot up the mall. But then when you look online, there was over 25,000 attacks in the US, but you only knew about maybe 5 or 6.
How did they sell the American dream? Through Hollywood, a walk on Times Square, weekends at Long Island, vacations in Miami, fall in Vermont, the Ivy League colleges, the steak and the beer. Most of those applying for an H-1B visa or an American college want this life. They want to live the American culture. Nothing wrong with that. It's just that American culture sounds oxymoronic, at least to me.
We have to really rebrand. And then when you look at how the world perceives Africa, they're right. You see zebras, lions, tigers, bears. Oh my. You get to the point where you think Africa's just a big jungle. The images that they're showing of Africa is historical images. This is way before civilization. This is when they were still, battling with spears, like times of Shaka Zulu. No, I'm serious. But then when you look at the US, they're showing Superman, Batman.
The Chinese president is asking filmmakers to make science fiction movies to push the Chinese narrative. When the UK wanted to promote the London Olympics, it invited James Bond into the Buckingham Palace. America is using superheroes to sell dreams and coffee.
Where is our Superman? Where is our, like, Shaka Zulu should be a superhero today. Really. So we have to tell our own stories. I mean, even Jesus is white. And you believe it. But it's okay, because how you were framed, if you taught something from the day you were born, and your mother taught you that, your father taught you that, it's real. You never look at your mom and your dad as liars. But their mother and father taught them the same thing, because that's the kind of history that's put out for them to believe. Our history books in the US is all white American history, culture that's been borrowed from other nations. But Africa have to teach the same history of our ancestors, the great things that they have accomplished. You know? And it's going to be the jobs of directors like yourself, filmmakers like yourself, to narrate that story. How do we want to be perceived? How do we want that story to be narrated to the rest of the world? This younger generation, we kind of figured it out. Because now, when you look at hip-hop in America, every rapper is rich. Gold chains, Bentleys, nice girls by the pool with bathing suits in this big mansion. And then, when the video's over, they get on their phone and call an Uber. They don't even come in the Bentley that you just saw in the TV. But you go to Nigeria, we got Wizkid, Davido, P-Square, all these guys driving a Bentley, Mercedes. They actually own those cars. That's the difference. But if we don't translate that, they will never know. They think we're going to leave the shoot and go home on a horse or a zebra. Because that's what they know. This is why African Americans are so afraid of Africa. You mention Africa, they start shaking. It's so much fear.
Be careful of the soft bigotry of low expectations. And I'm afraid to say that where Africa is concerned, we as a global community have approached the situation in Africa with that of low expectations. Low expectations of what Africans can do, but low expectations also about the African continent in general. The fact of the matter is, we know that there is not a single country on earth today, anywhere, in North America, South America, Asia, Europe, anywhere on earth that has achieved long-term economic growth and has meaningfully reduced poverty by relying on aid. And yet, we continue to push an agenda of aid onto the African continent.
So how does the West ensure that the free aid keeps coming? By systematically destabilizing the wealthiest African nations and their systems, and all that backed by huge PR campaigns, leaving the entire world under the impression that Africa is poor and dying and merely surviving on the mercy of the West. Well done, Oxfam, UNICEF, Red Cross, Life Aid, and all the other organizations that continuously run multi-million-dollar advertisement campaigns depicting charity porn to sustain that image of Africa globally. Ad campaigns paid for by innocent people under the impression to help with their donations. While one hand gives under the flashing lights of cameras, the other takes in the shadows.
Africa, historically, sub-Saharan Africa, has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer.
We all know the dollar is worthless, while the euro is merely charged with German intellect and technology, and maybe some Italian pasta. How can one expect donations from nations that have so little? It is super sweet of you to come with your colored paper in exchange for our gold and diamonds. But instead, you should come empty-handed, filled with integrity and honor. We want to share with you our wealth and invite you to share with us. The perception is that a healthy and thriving Africa would not disperse its resources as freely and cheaply, which is logical. Of course, it would instead sell its resources at world market prices, which in turn would destabilize and weaken Western economies, established on the post-colonial free meal system.
I know for sure we're worth way more than what people look at us to be, because their idea and their goal is to keep us to think that we're nothing so they can continue to be something. Without Africans, the world won't exist. Without Africa itself, economy won't even exist.
The West needs Africa's resources most desperately to power airplanes, cell phones, computers, and engines. And the gold and diamonds, of course, a status symbol to determine their powers by their core and to give value to their currencies. One thing that keeps me puzzled, despite having studied finance and economics at the world's best universities, the following question remains unanswered. Why is it that 5,000 units of our currency is worth 1 unit of your currency, where we are the ones with the actual gold reserves? It's quite evident that the aid is in fact not coming from the West to Africa, but from Africa to the Western world. The Western world depends on Africa in every possible way, since alternative resources are scarce out here.
And I think if we put ourselves in a situation to think that things that seem to be impossible is impossible, we'll never reach a goal outside of who we are. And I remember the time of history that I was taught when Africa controlled the world. We were kings, queens, richer than anybody you can ever think about. And to this day, people around the world is trying to figure out how the hell those Africans build those pyramids with no machines. Believe me, we have the capability. We just have to believe in ourselves enough to know that we can do it. We have to be able to tell our own stories. Directors, filmmakers, entertainers, it's going to be clearly, and the press, it's going to be your job to redefine how people think about Africa. What you choose to put out there is what the world is going to get. There's a lot of things that's happening in the US that you would never see because they choose to show you what they want you to see.
Stories matter. Many stories matter. Stories have been used to dispossess and to malign, but stories can also be used to empower and to humanize. Stories can break the dignity of a people, but stories can also repair that broken dignity. That when we reject the single story, when we realize that there is never a single story about any place, we regain a kind of paradise. Thank you.
But I met her today, and she told me that, hey Maya, I'm in Ghana because of your videos. I'm like, hell no. I mean, my videos brought you to Ghana. I mean, I thought I'm like having fun. I never knew the videos are having impact.
Of course they do. You have like 500,000 subscribers. They're impacting people. And I am one of your faithful subscribers, absolutely. And I've been following you for a while. And I'll tell you, what you're doing is giving people a positive light on Africa.